Welcome to the Autism Awareness webinar with Story Grammar Marker. It's going to be presented by Maryellen Rooney Moreau. I am Maryellen's daughter, Sheila Moreau, and we are doing this beginning section right now because I had a huge kickoff. For those of you that know Story Grammar Marker, you'll know what that means. And I realized that I forgot to press the record button right at the beginning, so we missed the first 6 or 7 minutes. And I want to make sure that those of you who are joining us after the fact do not miss out on one single word that Maryellen has said this evening. So I think this mostly pertains to people that were watching live. It talks about also the handout, so if you're watching after the fact, the handout can be found on our website because it won't be in here for you to download because you're not watching it live. You can go to mindwingconcepts.com and you can click right on the front page where it says webinar attendees and you can get the handout there. Maryellen's bio. Maryellen has a 40-year professional career. She went from school-based SLP, college professor, to diagnostician at the Curtis Blake Child Development Center, and concurrently was the coordinator of intervention curriculum and professional development at the Curtis Blake Day School for Children with Language Learning Disabilities. She designed the Story Grammar Marker tool in 1991, and since then she has written 16 publications and developed more than 40 hands-on tools. And all based on the discourse level of language. In 2011, she received the Boise Peace Quilt Project Award for her work with children in the area of conflict resolution and social communication, which we're going to be talking about this evening, social communication. In 2014, she received the Alice H. Garside Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Dyslexia Association, Massachusetts branch for exemplary leadership, service, and achievement in the area of helping children with dyslexia and language learning disabilities, and Maryellen is an internationally recognized presenter. We did do 3 polls, which we can't do in the recording, but we did. We polled people on who had heard of, who had used SGM. Most people, I'd say half the people had used it for under 2 years, and probably half the people had used it for several years or even 10 years plus. So we had, you know, a good mix of learners. And I'm sorry, the others were, one of them was asking if people had ever used this with children along the autism spectrum or those who had social communication disorders, and it was about half and half. Some people had tried it with that population, some people had not, so it was 50-50 there. And then the third polling question was what people would like for a workshop, for future webinars. And the most popular one was a workshop, a webinar about Maryellen's favorite selections of children's literature to use with Story Grammar Marker. And the second most popular was how to use SGM with expository text. So stay tuned, we'll be having those in the future. So this webinar is not a tutorial about autism or social pragmatic communication disorders. We are going to presume that you have a good foundation of knowledge about these 2 areas, or else you probably would not have been interested in hearing about the application to Story Grammar Marker. It's also, its purpose is not to define and describe the challenges that students might have. We're also presuming that if you're working with children with these diagnoses, you will also be well versed in the challenges that you face and that working with them and that they face in their learning attempts. What this is about is how to address your students or your child's challenges by applying Story Grammar Marker's methodology and tools and demonstrating for you how to do this with quality literature and lessons. So this is our contribution to autism awareness. Tonight, we're going to share with you how Story Grammar Marker and our related evidence-based methodology and tools can be implemented to address these areas that are often challenging for children with autism, with a focus on social pragmatic communication disorders. So the areas are personal event narratives, pragmatics, theory of mind, perspective taking, inference, and conversation repair. I'm just going to have Maryellen, I'm going to switch over for Maryellen so she can give you a little bit more of the foundation, and then I will tell Maryellen when we can end and when the beginning where I started recording originally. Thank you. Here's Maryellen. Yep. Not very far.
Great. So I'm happy to be with you. I I wanted to again thank Sheila Moreau for preparing the PowerPoint. I wanted to thank Sheila Zagula for preparing the handout. And I wanted to thank Bill Noss, our graphic designer, for all these years, who always makes us look good. So this is just for people just starting out with Story Grammar Marker. These icons were developed 25 years ago as we started out, 26 years ago now, as we started out with the Story Grammar Marker for students who didn't know what to put in their boxes of beginning, middle, and end when they were starting to write. And I found out over time that they couldn't orally do this either, without a lot of questions from me as their therapist. Classroom teachers agreed with me, and those who taught reading and had to get retellings were flabbergasted that students would have so much trouble. So anyway, the character is the head, the setting is a star with 5 points for what you saw there, what you did there, what you tasted there, those kinds of things, what you smelled there. It's for sailors at night. If they're lost, they look to the stars to see where and when. The kickoff is the initiating event. It is also a problem. Nothing happens in a football game until the kickoff, which is why that got to be the icon. The most important icon is the feeling icon, I think. The mental state icon is a thought bubble. The plan is a hand, which means to stop, think, and make a plan. Planned attempts are the beads that go down to the consequence at the end, or the tie-up. And then there are also 3 more little beads, little heart beads, to think about how the character feels now at the end. Did he get what he wanted or not? So this, over a period of time, is what we work on to get kids to the complete episode, the basic unit of a plot. And the complete episode is also a retelling of a personal story. What 2 things set the Story Grammar Marker apart? The application to the research of the developmental sequence. We can use this as we read books ourselves, as we observe social situations ourselves. We notice, are there kickoffs or not going on? What about a book? What does it have in it? We can also use it with children when they retell or generate a story. What are they including? Are they leaving the listener in the dark or not? And where we would want to go with them. The other part is the critical thinking triangle, which forms the crux of the Story Grammar Marker. It contains the feelings, the mental states, the icon for the plan. So it's the causal connection, but it's really made robust by the motivation of the character. How does he feel? And what does he know, think, understand that will help him make a plan? This is a fun diagram, but it shows the icons are at the surface. Without a lot of knowledge, the icons are the icons. They do formulate a story, and we can talk about that as well, but each of the developmental stages leads us from just a very simple character setting and action sequence all the way up to an interactive episode, which is the stage of the story that we're going to use tonight. At the lowest, deepest level is the critical thinking triangle, because as I said, without that, the Story Grammar Marker would simply be a series of actions. This is what children need if they're going to develop social understanding. For a long time ago, I created this building blocks of oral language diagram just to show that that oral language was the foundation of literacy, and that Story Grammar Marker was at the discourse level of oral language development, which is the level beyond the sentence. And it's that level that is the conversation level, which is person-to-person dyads, the narrative level, which is telling of a story, and exposition or nonfiction, which would be information text. Problems of world leaders, for instance, would come under that. Without discourse, there's not an efficient connection between oral language and literacy for academics or for social situations. Because if a child is limited at the syntax level, he or she will require extensive scaffolding. The icons of the story grammar marker provide that scaffolding with, as long as you've modeled it. These are the text structures. Dialogue is the hallmark of a conversation. Narrative has 7 stages, and there are several types of expository text or information text, culminating with the ability to argue. The ability to argue depends on whether or not you can take perspective, because if you only take your own perspective, you won't argue with the viewpoint of somebody else in mind. So it all relates. This is the formal definition of social pragmatic communication disorder from the DSM-5.
Just go through this a little bit, and that's the last slide.
2013. I wanted to just in general say that this is about face-to-face communication. It's about being able to analyze and understand nuances of social situations, interpersonally, which is like knowing what's going on between two people, or intrapersonally, understanding your own thoughts and feelings. It involves social cognition. It involves using language to express at the discourse level because it's following the rules for conversation or storytelling. And in conversation, there are rules of turn-taking. Very simply, you can use the story grammar marker and alternate icons and begin to talk about a situation. We're going to talk about much more today in terms of what this is. The symptoms must be present in childhood and limit functional communication, social participation and relationships, academic achievement, and later on, occupational performance, which is why we entitled our book, one of our autism collection books, Facilitating Relationships. The third aspect of the definition is to rule out autism spectrum disorder. In this way, there are many things that show up that we look at every day with our students who have social communication problems. And I'm just going to leave this for you to look at, but there are delays in language in some children. There's difficulty with nonverbal communication, understanding facial expressions and body language. Abrupt transitions and changes of topic when there's a conversation or a telling of a story. Failure to provide context. Not taking the needs of the listener into consideration, and the sense of being different, the ability to point out and identify one's emotions. I just thought I'd show the cover of this book because it's been great for me as far as a reference for social communication development and disorders, published in 2015. And it has great chapters by Kara Westby, Catherine Adams, Fujiki and Brinton, Timler and White, Fannin, Watson, and its author. It is a treasure. So social communicative competence reflects children's skills for influencing others and interpreting social situations in real time. I thought I'd put this up because of the bullets. It's supported by executive functioning. It's supported by language abilities. And it's supported by social cognitive processes. In other words, thinking about social situations. Pragmatics is who says what to whom and in what way. Pragmatics is the reason for talking. It's the frequency of communication. It's the ability to take turns, maintain a topic, change topics. Its flexibility to modify speech for different listeners and social situations. This is very problematic for many of our students. What is Pragmatics? Many years ago, I created this diagram of what Pragmatics is. Pragmatics being a combination of social conventions and related discourse components. So we look at where you're looking in the room. Is there extra noise? What about space? How are you using space around you? What is the body language? What's the tone of voice? Is the student providing feedback? Taking turns appropriately? Maintaining a topic? Commenting when they're supposed to? And asking for clarification or repairing the messages. And we're going to be talking about that tonight when we talk about our 6-second stories for conversation. I often have children rate themselves from 1 to 5 on this, and of course they all get 5s according to them. But it's a great tool to use even in a conversation with a teacher about what the problems are, or a parent. There have been many studies on, of course, what works with children with autism. And the National Standards Project in 2009 had a new category of story-based intervention as one of the 11 established treatments for autism and the only non-behavioral intervention cited. Primarily it was social stories, pioneered by Carol Gray, but it also means story-based, so narrative as well. And in this webinar, we decided to use a chapter book. We usually use a picture book because I always find it that the pictures help kids to find out what's not in print. And it facilitates looking at inference and things like that. But I wanted to show the use of this with a book, and we chose Wonder. It's about a boy named August Pullman, a 10-year-old living in the fictional neighborhood of North River Heights in Upper Manhattan. He has a rare medical facial deformity which he refers to as mandibulofacial dysostosis, more commonly known as Treacher-Collins syndrome and a cleft palate. I thought that this was very interesting to me as a speech-language pathologist who has dealt with children with various disorders throughout my life. August has been homeschooled by his mother, but now for 5th grade he will be going to school for the first time, and this is the kickoff, really, for the whole novel. It's going to be made into a movie soon, starring Julia Roberts. And here is Augie and his friend Jack. And it's from Jack's perspective that we're going to take the story. Now, I just wanted to mention a few things about communicative development, or social communication development, means entering the community of minds. When we enter the community what other people think, and we are able to express that. I've referenced a couple of books here, Why Language Matters for Theory of Mind, and Kane and Oakhill's book on comprehension problems, just because they are really good references. Theory of mind is getting into the mind of another character. Jerome Bruner, I've always had a citation since the beginning of the story grammar marker on the bottom of our developmental sequence. It talks about the journey from the landscape of action to the landscape of consciousness. The landscape of consciousness is when a child is able to take into consideration feelings, motives, and intentions of others. but the journey there may take a long time. Theory of mind, I just thought I'd include this wonderful slide, which you might read over coffee tomorrow morning. The definition of theory of mind, how it's many things. I mentioned intrapersonal theory of mind, where you reflect on your own thoughts. Interpersonal theory of mind, where you think about somebody else and how they might be thinking or feeling. Cognitive theory of mind, where we're looking at the thoughts of others. Affective theory of mind, where we're recognizing and understanding the feelings of others. And of course, I just put in that clinicians and teachers have theory of mind when they're aware of their students' view of the world. And it allows us to anticipate the students' reactions to life. So there are many aspects of theory of mind. It's a problem for children with social pragmatic communication disorders, but also a problem for other children with other disorders as well. Theory of mind development is closely tied to children's language skills, particularly the sentence level and how they can express feelings, thoughts, plans all together. Coupled with language beyond the level of the sentence, conversations about experiences, events, situations. These build awareness of mental states and feelings if we have conversations with our children. And it builds an awareness and an understanding of communicative intentions of self and others. In other words, what we want to do and what others want to do. Parent and peer conversations about thoughts and remembrances help in developing perspective taking. So it's very important to involve parents and also to involve children in peer conversations. The critical thinking triangle, which we're going to talk about today, refers to this community of mind. And there are many other words for it. Mindness, mindful speech, the community of minds. Just thought you'd like to have those. So the handout that you downloaded pertains to the next section that we're going to talk about. And it's about Jack. And Jack is a character who enters the book on page 134, enters the novel. And each of the sections begins with a saying. This is the one about Jack. Now here is my secret. It is very simple. It is only with one's heart that one can see clearly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. From The Little Prince. So what I thought we'd do is just read these 3 chapters, which are about 6 pages, and I would like to just read them very fast. What I'd like you to be thinking of is who's talking, what is the thought, do you think, of the characters who are talking, what do you think their plans are, what are their feelings? So I'd like you to just be thinking of that as I read. The first thing about the book is that the chapters are very short, a couple of pages, and they all have a name, which lets us look at the kickoff pretty well. So I'm going to start now. So in August, my parents got this call from Mr. Tushman, the middle school director. And my mother said, maybe he calls all the new students to welcome them. And my dad said, that's a lot of kids he'd be calling. So my mom called him back, and I could hear her talking to Mr. Tushman on the phone. This is exactly what she said. Oh, hi, Mr. Tushman. This is Amanda Will returning your call. Pause. Oh, thank you. It's so nice of you to say. He's looking forward to it. Pause. Yes. Pause. Yeah. Pause. Oh, sure. Long pause. Oh. Uh-huh. Pause. Well, that's so nice of you to say. Pause. Sure. Oh. Super long pause. I see. Of course. I'm sure he will. Let me write it down. Got it. I'll talk to you after I've had a chance to talk to him, okay? Pause. No, thank you for thinking of him. Bye-bye. And when she hung up, I was like, what's up? What did he say? And Mom said, well, actually, very flattering, but kind of sad, too. See, there's a boy who's starting middle school this year, and he's never been to a real school before because he was homeschooled. So Mr. Tushman talked to one of the lower school teachers to find out who they thought were some of the really, really great kids coming to 5th grade. And the teachers must have told him you were an especially nice kid, which I already knew, of course. And so Mr. Tushman is wondering if he could count on you to sort of shepherd this new boy around a bit. Like let him hang out with me, I said. Exactly, said Mom. He called it being a welcome buddy. But why me? I told you, your teacher told Mr. Tushman that you were a nice kid who's known to be a good egg. I mean, I'm so proud that they think so highly of you. Why is it sad? What do you mean? You said it's flattering but kind of sad, too. Oh, Mom nodded. Well, apparently this boy has some sort of, I guess there's something wrong with his face or something like that. Not sure. Maybe he had an accident. Mr. Tushman said he'd explain a bit more when you come to school next week. School doesn't start until September. He wants you to meet this kid before school starts. Do I have to? Mom looked a bit surprised. Well, no, of course not, she said, but it would be a nice thing to do, Jack. If I don't have to do it, I said, I don't want to do it. Can you at least think about it? I'm thinking about it. I don't want to do it. Well, I'm not going to force you, she said, but at least think about it some more, okay? I'm not calling Mr. Tushman back until tomorrow, so just sit with it a bit. I mean, Jack, I really don't think it's that much to ask that you spend a little extra time with some new kid. It's not that he's a new kid, Mom, I answered. He's deformed. That's a terrible thing to say, Jack. He is, Mom. You don't even know who he is. Yeah, I do, because I knew the second she started talking about him that it was that kid named August. That was the first time so now we're in Carvel, which is the second 2-page chapter. I remember seeing him for the first time in the front of Carvel on Amesfort Avenue when I was about 5 or 6. Me and Veronica, my babysitter, were sitting on a bench outside the store with Jamie, my baby brother, who was sitting in his stroller facing us. I guess I was busy eating my ice cream cone because I didn't even notice the people who sat down next to us. Then, at one point, I turned my head to suck the ice cream out of the bottom of my cone, and that's when I saw him. August. He was sitting right next to me. I know it wasn't cool, but I kind of went when I saw him because I honestly got scared. I thought he was wearing a zombie mask or something. It was a kind of you say when you're watching a scary movie and the bad guy like jumps out of the bushes. Anyway, I know it wasn't nice of me to do that, and though the kid didn't hear me, I know his sister did. Jack, we have to go, said Veronica. She had gotten up and was turning the stroller around because Jamie, who had obviously just noticed the kid too, was about to say something embarrassing. So I jumped up kind of suddenly like a bee had landed on me and followed Veronica as she zoomed away. I could hear the kid's mom saying softly behind us, "Okay, guys, I think it's time to go." And I turned around to look at them one more time. The kid was licking his ice cream cone, the mom was picking up his scooter, and the sister was glaring at me like she was going to kill me. I looked away quickly. "Veronica, what's wrong with that kid?" I whispered. "Hush, boy," she said, in her voice angry. I love Veronica, but when she got mad, she got mad. Meanwhile, Jamie was practically spilling out of his stroller trying to get another look as Veronica pushed him away. "But Vonica," said Jamie, "you boys were very naughty," said Veronica, as soon as we were further down the block, staring like that. "I didn't mean to," I said. "Vonica," said Jamie. "Us leaving like that," Veronica was muttering. "Oh, Lord, that poor lady. I tell you, boys, every day we should thank the Lord for our blessings. Do you hear me?" "Vonica, what is it, Jamie? Is it Halloween?" "No, Jamie." "Then why was that boy wearing a mask?" Veronica didn't answer. Sometimes when she was mad about something, she would do that. "He wasn't wearing a mask," I explained to Jamie. "Hush, Jack," said Veronica. "Why are you so mad, Veronica?" I couldn't help asking. I thought this would make her angrier, but actually she shook her head. "It was bad how we did that," she said, "just getting up like that. Just like we'd seen the devil. I was scared for what Jamie was going to say, you know. I didn't want him to say anything that would hurt the little boy's feelings, but it was very bad, us leaving like that. the mama knew what was going on. But we didn't mean it, I answered. Jack, sometimes you don't have to mean to hurt someone to hurt someone. You understand? That was the first time I ever saw August in the neighborhood, at least that I remember. But I've seen him around ever since then, a couple of times at the playground, a few times at the park. He used to wear an astronaut helmet sometimes, but I always knew it was him underneath the helmet. All the kids in the neighborhood knew it was him. Everyone has seen August at some point or another. We all know his name, though he doesn't know ours. And whenever I've seen him, I try to remember what Veronica said, but it's hard. It's hard not to sneak a second look. It's hard to act normal when you see him. The last chapter here is why I changed my mind. Now I'm reading these 3 chapters because in effect they're one high-level episode. Who else did Mr. Tushman call? I asked my mom later that night. Did he tell you? He mentioned Julian and Charlotte. Julian? Ugh, why Julian? You used to be friends with Julian. Mom, that was like in kindergarten. Julian's the biggest phony there is, and he's trying so hard to be popular all the time. Well, said Mom, at least Julian agreed to help this kid out. Got to give him credit for that. I didn't say anything because she was right. What about Charlotte, I asked. Is she doing it too? Yes, Mom said. Of course she is. Charlotte's such a goody two-shoes, I answered. Boy, Jack, said Mom, you seem to have a problem with everybody these days. It's just, I started. Mom, you have no idea what this kid looks like. I can imagine. No, you can't. You've never seen him, and I have. It might not be even who you're thinking it is. Trust me, it is, and I'm telling you, it's really bad. His eyes are like down here. I pointed at my cheeks, and he has no ears, and his mouth is like... Jamie walked into the kitchen to get a juice box from the fridge. Ask Jamie, I said. Right, Jamie? Remember that kid we saw in the park after school last year, the kid named August? Oh, that kid, said Jamie, opening his eyes wide. He gave me a nightmare. Remember, Mommy, the nightmare about the zombies? I thought it was from watching a scary movie, answered Mom. No, said Jamie. It was from seeing that kid. When I saw him, it was like, ah, and I ran away. Wait a minute, said Mom, getting serious. Did you do that in front of him? I couldn't help it, said Jamie, kind of whining. Of course you could help it, Mom scolded. Guys, I have to tell you I'm really disappointed by what I'm hearing here. And she looked like how she sounded. I mean, honestly, he's just a little boy just like you. Can you imagine how he felt to see you running away from him, Jamie screaming? It wasn't a scream, argued Jamie. It was like an ah. He put his hands on his cheeks and started running around the kitchen. Come on, Jamie, said Mom angrily. I honestly thought both my boys were more sympathetic than that. What is sympathetic, said Jamie, who was going into the 2nd grade. You know exactly what I mean by sympathetic, Jamie. It's just he's so ugly, Mommy, said Jamie. Hey, Mom yelled. I don't like that word. Jamie, just get your juice box. I want to talk to Jack alone for a second. Look, Jack, said Mom as soon as he left. I knew she was going to give me a whole speech. Okay, I'll do it, I said, which completely shocked her. You will? Yes. So I can call Mr. Tushman? Yes, Mom said. I said yes. Mom smiled. I knew you'd rise to the occasion, kiddo. Good for you. I'm proud of you, Jackie. And she messed up my hair. So, here's why I changed my mind. It wasn't so I wouldn't have to hear Mom give me a whole lecture. And it wasn't to protect this August kid from Julian, who I knew would be a jerk about the whole thing. It was because when I heard Jamie talking about how he had run from August going, ah, I suddenly felt really bad. The thing is, there are always going to be kids like Julian who are jerks. But if a little kid like Jamie, who's usually a nice enough kid, can be that mean, then a kid like August doesn't stand a chance in middle school. Now I wanted to read that, or have you read it with me, so that's why we put the words up. But there is so much in just that bit. So we're going to mention that this is a stage 7. It's an interactive episode. There were lots of kickoffs that caused other people to have feelings and make plans and do things like running away and commenting to Mom. So this is a high-level story. The critical thinking triangle is what is most important so that we can see the feelings and thoughts that went on in Jack's mind as he planned eventually to be the buddy. The critical thinking triangle are the kickoff, the feeling, the thoughts, and the plan. They're right in the middle of the story grammar marker. Without those components, the story grammar marker would just be a series of actions. So here's the kickoff, the feeling, the mental states, and the plan. And you'll notice as you look at it that on the arrows are cohesive tie words so that you can practice with the kids to create sentences to connect these components. Last year we gave a workshop that resulted in the Critical Thinking Triangle in Action publication. And that's what we're going to be using tonight to analyze those 3 chapters from Wonder. In that publication, there's a learning scale protocol for the critical thinking triangle, kind of like a rubric, which informs our teaching and assists us in knowing where children are and where they might go. For tonight's webinar, we chose a goal from thoughts, and we chose a goal from critical thinking triangle components. This is both sides of the bookmark that comes with that, and we just thought you'd like to have these words. The words in bold are the basic emotions of happy, sad, mad, scared, surprised, and disgusted that we seem to be wired with, and 5 synonyms for those. On the second side are what are called social emotions. Those are not just one emotion. They're kind of a combination of several emotions, and they depend on the exact situation that's going on. So here we are with the Critical Thinking Triangle in Action Student Thinking Mat. It's very much like our mini poster of the Critical Thinking Triangle. So what we did was we took pages for evidence. We put the page numbers down for evidence because that's what we are looking for in school. So the kickoff is that Mr. Tushman called to ask Jack to bring Augie on a tour, to be a welcome buddy, right? That created feelings on the part of Jack. First of all, he was surprised, and all of these feeling words are in the kit, but we're just showing them to you like this. So he was surprised that Mr. Tushman called in the middle of the summer. He was upset. And why was he upset? Because he had had experiences with Augie before and knew what the conversation was about. He was also shaken because he was kind of angry or mad about what was happening. So it's not only one feeling that we have, it's often more than one feeling that a kickoff provides. Now we're going to look at the thoughts that Jack is having in his journey to finally decide to help Augie out. So what does he know for a fact? On page 135 we found this, that Mom was proud he was asked. That made him feel guilty, which is a social emotion. It was probably a little bit of sadness and a little bit of anger, right? On page 136 and 137, there's the incident at Carvel. He remembers that. Now, these mental states a lot of times require memories from the past. So Augie and the incident at Carvel's as an episode was a memory for him. How did that make him feel? Well, we took right out of the book that he felt scared. That was stated. He also was repulsed, and we got that feeling when, or that idea when he was reacting and talked about how he was reacting with his right away. Also, he was shocked. He was shocked at the rapidity of their leaving and how it left everything undone. He understood on page 137 and 138, he understood what? He understood what Veronica said. And what did Veronica say? Jack, sometimes you don't have to mean to hurt someone to hurt someone. You understand? That made him feel ashamed. He knew she expected more of him, and he didn't live up to that, and he knew that. So as we're doing these things, this is just to show you how much goes on in the minds of characters and how this tool facilitates discussion about it. On page 140, he knows that his mom wants him to be sympathetic. He is embarrassed because he's not living up to her standards, and actually he's beginning to know that he should help Augie out. He also feels nervous because he doesn't want to do that, and it will be a new adventure for him, a new journey. Augie may have a tough time in middle school. That made him feel empathetic. Right? He took Augie's point of view, and essentially it was stated at the end of the 3rd chapter when he said that there would always be kids like Julian who are jerks, but if a little kid like Jamie, who usually is a nice enough kid, can be mean, then a kid like August doesn't stand a chance in middle school. All of these thoughts or mental states, what he remembers, what he knows, what he realizes, give rise to feelings which result in the decision to help Augie out and become a buddy, which is on page 141. So we're really annotating pages here and talking about that. Perspective taking with the critical thinking triangle. This is from our book called Making Connections, and it's part of the Autism collection. Some of you may have it. It's a perspective-taking sheet which we can use to talk about perspectives, what a person is thinking and what a person says. So here we have Jack, who's the person's perspective that we're taking. The kickoff is the incident at Carvel, where he sees Augie, he hears Jamie's response, and he witnesses Veronica's reaction. How does he feel? Well, we know he felt scared, he felt repulsed and shocked. What's he thinking? There's that kid Augie. Oh no, Jamie is yelling. What does he say? He says, Veronica, what's wrong with that kid? And then he says, but we didn't mean it, which results in Veronica's statement. So that's Jack. And this diagram has helped so many students, differentiating between what one thinks but doesn't say and what one says. Here's Veronica. Same incident. She's looking at witnessing Jack's and Jamie's reaction. So even though it's the same incident, Veronica is looking at things that are kind of different from what Jack looked at. She also has a thought that the mama heard, and she was very looking at the abrupt departure that she had to take. How did she feel about it? She was angry, and her anger kind of bordered on being furious. And we know how there are ranges of feelings. She's also the social emotion of embarrassed. She was probably sad. She was probably angry. She was also empathetic because she could take the perspective of the mother. So in her mind, she's thinking, what a horrible situation. We have to leave. I know the mama heard. What does she say? She says, you boys were very naughty. Jack, sometimes you don't have to mean to hurt someone to hurt someone. You understand? So that was major, I thought. So now we have our third part that we wanted to talk about tonight, 6-second stories for teaching conversation repair. This is in our book from the Autism collection called Facilitating Relationships. And it was created by Gwen McElhenney of Idaho. And she did a lot of, or does a lot of work with conversation repair. She had been using Story Grammar Marker and was working on kernel sentences for students who had a lot of difficulty conversing, beginning their conversation. So what is a 6-second story? It's who did what, where, and when. And where is that on the developmental checklist? It's at the action sequence level. So it's a very early level of development. Because in order to really converse, you have to be able to tell a story and go back and forth with it. So it creates a springboard for a balanced conversational exchange like, my parents took me to see the movie Beauty and the Beast at the mall on Saturday night, instead of saying something like, they took me to the movie, which is a sentence which could easily cause a conversational breakdown because there's not enough information for the listener who may not know to ask for it. So how would a hypothetical 6-second story by Jack get developed? So say the kickoff is the first day of school and Jack becomes Augie's welcome buddy. How does Jack feel? He's nervous and curious about how they get along and whether or not they would have things to talk about. Augie said to Jack in the kickoff, what did you do this summer? Feeling nervous and curious, Jack remembered, these are mental states now, memories that you can conjure up. He remembered he saw Augie at Carvel with his mom and sister last summer. He wondered if Augie liked ice cream as much as he did. So Jack decided to tell Augie about himself in a way that would kick off a brief conversation that might lead to a friendship, or at least a comfortable day. He planned to respond to Augie's inquiry using a 6-second story. My mom, brother, and I ate ice cream at Carvel a lot this summer. That's who did what, where, and when. Here it is on the 6-second story conversational starter, conversational connector sheet, and this is the 6-second story flip book, which is in our manual, and it enables you to use common experiences of the children that you're working with. So my mom, brother, and I ate ice cream at Carvel a lot this summer. The conversation with 6-second story intervention, Augie, what did you do this summer? Jack, my mom, brother, and I ate at Carvel a lot. Augie, really? I love Carvel ice cream. My mom takes my sister and I there a lot. What's your favorite kind? Jack, I like cookie dough crunch the best. The last time I went, I tripped on the way out and it splattered all over me and another customer. Augie, no way. You must have been so embarrassed and annoyed that your ice cream was gone. I remember a time I was at a baseball game and I spilled. This is a conversation that children can be assisted in developing. But the conversation without 6-second story intervention, Augie says, what did you do this summer? And Jack says, ate ice cream. As the speaker, Jack did not prepare his message so his communication partner could understand it the first time. The conversation is over, or at best, is difficult for the communication partner to pursue. So where is the 6-second story related to pragmatics? It's in the area of clarification. Can you, as the listener, ask your communication partner to explain what he or she means if you're confused? Can you, as the speaker, prepare your message so the communication partner can understand it the first time? Can you, as the speaker, repair your message so your communication partner can understand it? And here's a little 6-second story conversational connector sheet. So here is Kathy was at the playground last Saturday. We might say, what did Kathy do? Kathy climbed the rock climbing wall at the playground last Saturday. That's clarification. Now we have Ronald played baseball with his team after school, but we don't know where. Where did Ronald play? In the park. Who bought a new lacrosse stick at the store last night? We look at the icon at the top and we get who, and it's Lauren bought a new lacrosse stick at the store last night. This is massed practice using the 6-second story flip chart. A personal narrative is something that we can use to converse. We can also use a personal narrative to defend ourselves. We can use a personal narrative to talk about an incident on the schoolyard to the principal. So one of the things that I like to say about personal narratives is that they're about life. We want to converse about them. We want to talk about this wonderful quote from Carol Westby and Charlene Simon's book that I used in 1985 to get started on the story grammar marker. We dream, remember, anticipate, hope, despair, love, hate, believe, doubt, plan, construct, gossip, and learn in narrative. It requires us to think about the past, the present, and the future. Now, in getting to the end of our workshop for tonight, I just wanted to share with you a 5th grade student, and at the time when I was working with him, Asperger's was a diagnosis. His personal narrative, this is his personal narrative in response to a writing prompt about a special day. The teacher was actually looking for an exciting beginning. And when he wrote this and showed it to me, he was very proud. He had an exclamation point in his exciting beginning, and he began with a quote. The only thing he didn't like was that it wasn't very long like the other kids' stories. So if we just look at this very quickly, I think you're going to determine that he didn't take the needs of the listener into consideration with his personal narrative. Better get up, my mother shouted from downstairs. They called and said they'd be coming 15 minutes early. I jumped up, pulled on my sweats, and bolted down the stairs. I had 45 minutes left and had a lot to do. They came in their big SUV. We had a really good time. We drove home in the rain, and I was really tired after all that walking. I kept thinking of that thing. I'll tell them about it at school. Even though I was mad, I had a great time. To make a long story short, this was about a trip to Six Flags with this boy's neighbors. We don't know where he went. We don't know who he went with. We don't know what he did. We don't know what happened to make him mad and where that happened. So my questioning for clarification got to the root of what he actually wanted to talk about, which was a day at Six Flags and then a meal at a great Italian restaurant afterwards, which he assumed that I always did when I went to Six Flags as well. It was there that he got mad about something that happened in a conversation. So I usually elaborate on this at workshops, and we take it apart and talk about it. But you can see by looking at the workshop tonight or the webinar tonight how much this boy did not take the listener into consideration and how a conversation could go awry. So I wanted to thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn this back to Sheila. I always enjoy doing webinars and workshops. and she's going to, I'll be back to answer some questions.
So I know we're going a little bit over, so we apologize for that. And also, I unfortunately, I forgot to click the record button at the beginning. So the first 6 or 7 minutes we missed on the recording. So when this is over, you can begin to log off, but I'm going to have Maryellen do the beginning over so that people that missed it tonight can at least have access to that. So I will tell you when we're officially finished with this, and then I'm just going to have Maryellen stay on so that she can record the beginning again. So I'm really sorry about that. For those of you who are logging on tomorrow and going forward, that is why you are watching the beginning at the end. But if you can bear with me, we're going to choose the winners. I just want to say that you are joining education professionals and parents who are using our methodology and tools with children in all 50 of the United States, in every province of Canada, in Australia, in the Netherlands, and I see that I think we've got one of our friends from the Netherlands who's on with us tonight as well. And we've got people using it in 21 other countries across the globe, so it's pretty exciting, and we'd love to keep expanding this, you know, to help as many children as we can. That's Maryellen's goal. Just wanted to show you also, between 1991 and 2017, these are the materials and methodologies that have been developed by Maryellen and her colleagues, starting with the story grammar marker that's right at the top of the diagram here. And, you know, it shows really the depth of what this tool and what this methodology can get into, and it shows all of the various applications, including what we talked about this evening. And none of this would be even worthwhile unless people were really getting results, both educators and parents. Just a tidbit about professional development. We do workshops and consultations in school districts, and actually I'm realizing in this photo I saw that Lynn Yates, who's the blonde sitting there smiling with her story grammar marker, I saw your name, Lynn. I know you're watching. This is a picture of Lynn in Pinellas County, Florida, where we do workshops, and that's with Paper Bag Princess. So we go all over the place doing workshops. We do workshops for organizations and agencies, presentations. This particular one in here, I think, has 700 people at the presentation. And then we also do certifications, and I think that Katja, who's also in this photo from the Netherlands, is on line with us. I have to double check on that, but I think I saw her name. And we do still have space available in our May certification session, so if anyone is interested in that, please contact me. I'm going to give you my contact information at the end. And I just wanted to say, too, if you are interested in professional development and you mention this Autism Awareness webinar to me, and again, I'm Sheila Moreau, you can receive 20% off the professional development fee if your purchase order is received before May 31st. We know at this time of year, spending down to the fiscal end of the year is kind of what's going on right now. So we wanted to give you that offer, and you can contact me here, and all the information, of course, will be in your handout. So now we've still got quite a few people on waiting for your raffle prize. Thank you so much for joining us and learning about these very specific aspects of using this with children who are along the autism spectrum or who have social communication disorders. And just know that this could be 2 days worth of a workshop, and it is. And what Maryellen shared with you, it's very difficult to do in a short, succinct amount of time, and we really appreciate you bearing with us. The special offer we have is we have 25% off our online store until midnight Pacific Coast time. So that gives people out on the West Coast and other parts of the world a little bit of extra time to order. And you can use code April25 at checkout if you'd like to purchase something. And then if you're not able to, but you want to go get, you know, permission from the supervisor or whatnot, we will still offer a 10% off until August 30th at midnight. I'm sorry, not August. I'm thinking of the book, August. April 30th at midnight, Pacific Coast time, and that's April 10th. That's the code you can use at checkout, and that's on our website, mindwingconcepts.com. These are 3 options that you might be interested in, that if you go to our website and you click right on the home page, it brings you right to a page that talks about these 3. And what they are is we put together a special option just for the month of April of MindWing's Autism Awareness Kit. And what is included in that is our Autism Collection for Social Communication, and listed here is everything that comes with that kit. The Critical Thinking Triangle and Action Set, which is our newest set of materials, and that's what Maryellen was using when she was using the Critical Thinking Triangle with the situation with Jack, and moving all of the emotions and the thoughts around the Critical Thinking Triangle. That is that set, the Critical Thinking Triangle and Action Set. It also comes with my fantastic words book, Stories for Teaching and Modeling Narrative Text Structure, and the Story Grammar Marker mini magnets. And if you order this by midnight tonight, you actually will save $83 off the regular retail prices, which is pretty amazing. The next option is option 2. And this is our Autism Collection for Social Communication. Most of the maps and activities that of the other things that Maryellen went through tonight are in these 3 books. And using these activities, they're fabulous. If you order this by midnight, you can get it for $112, and that's a $38 savings off the list price, which again is great. And then the third option that we wanted to talk to you about that would relate to this evening is the Critical Thinking Triangle in Action Set, and that's $39.95 normally. That's when Maryellen was doing the Critical Thinking Triangle mat with all of the emotions and thoughts and the kickoff and plan with the situation with Jack and his thought process. When she was using that, she was using what comes in this kit, and this kit is $10 off if you order it before midnight tonight. So that's another great savings. So the moment you've all been waiting for. So I just went by, it's called Raffle Number Generator, and we just went through and got 3 numbers, and they correspond to 3 different people. And so I'm just going to look on my computer, and the first winner is Josie Lochrie. Josie, Lochrie. And Josie, I will be in touch with you to get your address so that we can send you, and you will be winning the Facilitating Relationships. So congratulations, Josie. And then our next winner is Meredith Gibson. Meredith Gibson, congratulations. You are winning our fancy set of fancy pens. And that's the pens that I showed at the beginning that have the quick reference for narrative and expository text. Great for a conference, great for older students using Story Grammar Marker as well. And then the third winner, I'm going with our third random number here, is, oh, sorry, my computer just clicked, is Sugi Calderon. Sugi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, I hope I am, S-U-G-E-Y Calderon. And you win the Story Grammar Marker mini magnets. And so I'll be in touch with you to deliver your prizes to you as soon as possible. So this is just some information about how to connect with us. Congratulations to all the winners, and thank you all for staying with us and bearing with us. We know we're about 5 minutes over time. This is just ways to connect with us. Probably most of you already connect with us in these ways, but we always like to remind you to find us on Facebook and Pinterest and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, and of course on our own website, mindwingconcepts.com, to receive our constant contact emails. We'd like to remind you that there is an additional lesson on wonder the book we read tonight on our blog. So if you go to our website and you search keyword wonder, you will be able to find that blog as well. And the blog reference is also in our handout, so you will find it there. So right now, I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions, and if they, let me see, hold on one second. Okay. I'm going to read these questions, and Maryellen's going to answer them. So I'm just going to switch spots with her, and then right after that, we will just do the re-recording of the beginning of this. So Maryellen, I'll have you sit back down,
All right.
and I'll read the questions, and then you can answer. Okay, so here we go. So here's a question. Okay, sorry, it's taking a second here. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So around what, this is from Amy Snyder, around what age would you present this visual for character perspective?
The visual of the critical thinking triangle, you mean, or the stick figure, I think you're talking about. The stick figure has worked well in 2nd grade. I have used it with my grandson, and he has enjoyed going through it. I spend time modeling, of course, and the difference between a thought and what somebody says has to be modeled. But in 2nd grade, I've used it with him. You'd have to determine what you think you should do with your particular student. But this is a way to hone in on if the kids have a kickoff, if they know that the kickoff is causal and cause something, you can get to the beginnings of this.
And I was just going to say too, now you've got both of us here, squeezing together. I also remember a student that we had using this who, there was some incident happened around Halloween, and I remember a student we were using this with making herself in her Halloween costume on this, drawing it, coloring it in elaborately, and then telling the story. So sometimes it can be used with even, some younger students with just for the picture aspect of it.
And also putting these on popsicle sticks enables you to talk about a thought and what somebody says.
This next one is from Candace Bray. I think that the format of story grammar marker can be easily used with much younger children to begin to understand the basic who, what, where, and when. What do you think? I am going to let you talk about Brady for a second while I go grab Brady.
Hi, Candace. I think I know you. I do think that they can get the basic WH questions so that we can start very, very early with children, even around routines in the preschool. Who said what? What did they say? What did they do? How did they feel? Talk about that very, very early on. But I do have that thought as well. Now, Sheila just left for a minute. Okay. Oh, here's Brady.
A little disheveled.
A little disheveled like we are at this point. But there's Brady to start with, where we can take the icons off and just really start with what Candace talked about. Okay.
Okay. And a few people had sent messages about loving the webinar. Amy Snyder also asked, could we show a few more sample pages from Facilitating Relationships? I'm considering a purchase. I would like to see more. So Maryellen will definitely show you a couple of them. But I also wanted to say that if you go to our website and you look up in the search bar facilitating, and you get to facilitating relationships, to that manual, you can click on it and you'll be able to flip through a few pages to get a little bit of a preview. But Maryellen will kind of at least talk to you about the table of contents of what else is included in this book. So that's a great question because it's packed with information.
About half the book is devoted to 6-second stories. And there's a conversational skills rating form, which is included. There is a problem-solving protocol that incorporates several cards where prompt number 1 is, for instance, recognize a social situation. So what would be a social situation? Things focusing on the setting. So a baseball game, name it, where is it happening, when is it happening, are you a participant or are you an observer? Because it tells you then that you're actually doing it, or are you observing a group of people doing it. Then another prompt under that would be think and talk about the social situation. Who is present? Is it a ho-hum day? So there are all of these cards in there to do that with children, and it's great for small groups. There are things that Gwen wrote for generalization, for using 6-second stories with younger children and older children. There are some of the diagrams that we use tonight. How to make a 6-second story flip book, the directions on how to make it and the kinds of things to use in it. There are also the novel Stone Fox, which we included in here for looking at traits of the character and really how to get at a deeper understanding of character traits, which would include what characters like and dislike, which gives you an idea about perspective. So the other component of this is how to scaffold through a social situation. Now this is an action sequence. This is what it is, the cohesive ties, the rubric for an action sequence, where to start and where to finish, how to scaffold questions for a social situation in an action sequence. So these are invaluable for use with parents, because they can be given to parents on how to really help kids to tell where they've been, what they're doing, how they feel in a gradual way. So that goes all the way through the complete episode. Here's the complete episode. And here are the scaffolding questions, and then guiding questions to know when you've mastered, or when the child has mastered a complete episode in terms of thinking about a social situation. So this book has so much in it to really assist you in creating lessons for these children who have a myriad of difficulties in school and out of school because of social communication problems. Okay.
Just another question. Judy Hale just asked the question of missing the handout and how to get it. So if you're still online, Judy, you can get it if you click on handouts, which is part of the panel that's on the right-hand side of your screen. If you click on handouts, you can download them there. Or just go to mindwingconcepts.com and there will be a banner across the top that says webinar attendees. Click on that and you'll see you can download them there. I've gotten a lot of actually emails in the past couple of minutes with people who could not figure out where the handouts were, and that's why we put them online as well, because we noticed that sometimes it can be difficult to navigate, and we want to make sure that you have access to them. So Judy, that is that information. And now the next question is from Melissa Swartz, and Melissa asked, do you have any suggestions how to incorporate SGM in a therapy session with articulation and fluency students too. Unfortunately, my therapy schedule is tight and doesn't allow me to be able to schedule only language students in a therapy group. It seems like using the SGM in a therapy session would be time consuming, so I wonder how to maximize time with other types of speech disorders in one therapy session. And Maryellen will definitely answer this, but I know that a lot of people do that this way, and we may even be able to put you in touch with a colleague that could even speak more to the day-to-day, but Maryellen can answer that.
Especially with the fluency students, because the story grammar marker takes away the having to think about where do I go next. So it facilitates that. It facilitates also working memory issues. It facilitates retrieval issues. And of course, we don't expect kids to forever have to carry a story grammar marker around, because we want them to internalize the structure. But you can use it with kids who have, say you were even doing articulation problems or vocabulary issues. You can use it with those children by choosing tier 1 or 2 or 3 vocabulary, maybe tier 2 words out of the story, and working on those and then weaving them in as a model. You can use it when you have children turn and talk, and each of them takes an icon and goes back and forth to get the conversational dyad. Anytime you have a cause-effect goal, a problem-solving goal, a sequencing goal, because there's really, sequencing is kind of, it's really the whole thing that we're looking at. It's not just a series of actions. So anytime you have those particular goals, you can use the story grammar marker. And it is often true that there are multiple students with different problems within a therapy group. You can also use it in a small group for intervention in a classroom, should you be in there, or a large group for modeling. So model, scaffold, be attentive to what the IEP goals are for your students, and to use it with fluency almost as a preparatory set. So
okay,
that's my answer for that.
And Maya McGee asked the question, how can we use SGM to help our students on the spectrum initiate communications with their classmates and to keep the conversation going?
Well, that kind of is the 6-second story, to keep the conversation going, or to have a conversation about a kickoff, and then to have the dyad go back and forth with you modeling, here's the kickoff, where were they? And the other student answers that. But Gwen and we and many, many others have had great success with 6-second stories in starting conversations.
And also, just another comment on 6-second stories. What we talked about tonight was probably 6 minutes of the whole webinar with 6-second stories.
The airplane. Sheila used a 6-second story on an airplane to create a conversation. Not that she needed to do that.
I did. Well, it was when we first kind of learned about 6-second stories, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me on the plane, and I heard the flight attendant say that he was connecting in, wherever, Oregon, and going on to Hawaii. And so I said to him, oh, so you're heading to Hawaii? And just to start a conversation, not that I had to, but just because, I thought to be pleasant. And he said, yes, I am meeting my siblings and parents for my parents' 40th anniversary in Maui tomorrow. And so it clicked in my head all of a sudden. He told me that he was meeting he was meeting his parents and siblings to celebrate his parents' 40th anniversary in Maui that next day. Who did what, where, and when. That allowed me to say, you're not going to believe this, but it's my parents' 40th anniversary this weekend, except that my mother and I are traveling to do a workshop on story grammar marker, and my parents are not together this weekend. And then he said, oh, you know, what do you do for work? And I told him what we did, and I asked him if he had ever been to Hawaii before, and we ended up chatting for about, you know, a half hour till the plane, you know, started off and we both fell asleep. But I realized that, you know, in that moment, that 6-second story that he unknowingly said to me gave me the opportunity to ask him a question,
by recalling something you remembered.
By recalling something that I also remembered, and something that we had in common. And this goes along too with Michelle Winter has the friend files,
yes.
Social thinking, and really when I mentioned at the beginning of this answer, this is just a snippet of what we would do with conversation. The manual, Facilitating Relationships, is, you know, about half the manual focuses on 6-second stories, and it's really quite an elaborate method that requires mass practice, and that's where you'd really get into that conversation exchange that you're asking about. Thank you so much for that question. We've got a lot of people that are saying that they absolutely love the webinar, and they appreciate what you have done, Maryellen. And then one other question, do you think you could incorporate the stick figure visual with students that are working on judging the size of a problem?
Yeah, well, yes, and you know what else you could incorporate with that is the size of the shoe. The kickoff could be a small problem, or it could be something big. And we have a friend who's a school adjustment counselor, and she did that with students. 2 of them were working together, and there was a young man with a crew cut and a young woman with curly hair, very, very curly hair, and they were working on a glue project. The boy got glue in his hair, the girl got glue in her hair. Danielle showed them 2 different sizes of kickoffs, or the 4 sizes of kickoffs, and had them pick the kickoff size that particular problem meant to them. So that's Danielle Dugree right here in Wilbraham. So she was doing things like that. So show them the size of the shoe, and that graduates into looking at the feeling.
So I think that those were all the questions that we had. They were great questions. As you know, you can always call our office, and we have up in front of you the phone number to reach us, to reach Maryellen.
If I'm here,
if she's here, she can chat with you. You can also email Maryellen, and you can also look on our website. Do not forget to look at our blog. We have so many free lessons to download, and you don't want to miss that because it's just so much information for free. It's really incredible. Right now, the presentation has officially ended. We thank you so much for your time and joining us, and we appreciate your interest in Story Grammar Marker and in listening to Maryellen Moreau present.